What up, 5 o'clock hustlers? Welcome back to another installment of the 5 o'clock hustle podcast. This is episode 8. Before I talk about this week's episode, I just want to touch on how grateful I am of everyone who's jumped on board at this point. It's still early in the game and we're still finding our voice, but I honestly think that we're getting better and better at this thing every single episode. This episode is no exception. In fact, I'm pretty sure we're at a consensus with my fellow host when I say this is our best episode yet. This week, we had Greg Monterrosa. And before I hop into his extensive list of credentials, I just want to say how delightful this guy was. It's no wonder he's enjoyed the success he's had thus far. I mean, as soon as he walked in the room, it's like you're meeting with an old friend that you haven't seen in years, and then suddenly you're just picking up right where you left off. So now that I've creeped out our guest, let's dive into who Greg, my main man, Monterrosa is. Greg has been selected as one of the top 40 Pacific Coast Business Times up-and-coming business leaders. He's received the 40 Under 40 Award from the Conejo Valley Chamber of Commerce. He's the member of the Thousand Oaks Business Roundtable. And just the other day, he was elected to the Conejo Las Virgenes Future Foundation Board of Trustees. Greg has mentored hundreds of startups in the States and overseas. He's the founder of one of the nation's leading business formation companies with myllc.com. And last but not least, he's the founder and community manager of Hub 101. It's a nonprofit startup incubator and co-working space in our hometown of Westlake Village, California. And I just want to go on a little sidebar here. If it wasn't for Hub 101, if it wasn't for Greg, this podcast probably wouldn't even exist. And if you listen to older episodes, we actually recorded our first few episodes there. The acoustics weren't great, so we ended up changing our location, but honestly, if it wasn't for that space and that community, this thing would simply not exist. But yeah, just with a glance at Greg's work and his accomplishments, you can see that he loves his community. He's intelligent, he's passionate, he's genuine, and he's downright inspirational. If we could have Mana as a guest every single week, forever and ever, we'd do it, and you wouldn't even get bored. So in this week's episode, we talk with Greg about his work at Hub 101 and how he wants to replicate its success into other underserved cities. We also talked about living out of your calendar to optimize productivity and the importance of scheduling time for yourself. We talked about surrounding yourself with the right people, as well as the importance of networking and mentorship. Greg has countless practical tips for startups and aspiring entrepreneurs, and I know for a fact you're going to love this episode. Okay, before we get going, it's that time again. I'm going to go ahead and ask you to do something. We're really trying to build this up, and in order to have more awesome guests like Greg on the show, I need your help. So please leave us a review on iTunes and subscribe to our newsletter. The more support we get from you guys, the better our ranking gets, and the better our ranking gets, the better the content gets. Not to mention you're automatically entered to win stuff like official 5 o'clock hustle gear. So yeah, who doesn't like free stuff? Okay, everyone enjoy the episode and keep hustling. Dre, start the show. 5 o'clock hustle.
5 o'clock hustle, bro.
5 o'clock.
5 to 8, 5 to 12, 5 to 3 until you get back up the next morning.
Every week I got a new idea.
And that's what it always is, right? It's crazy.
5 o'clock.
I was doing that in 2005, but everybody thought it was weird.
5 o'clock.
Thus, the side hustle was created.
5 o'clock hustle podcast. Man, they're having so much fun. Well, again, thanks for coming out. It's Monday. It's raining. It's Monday.
Right. Thanks
Cool.
for making
It's
it on a
raining in
Monday.
California, though. I mean, that's...
You were telling us a lot about your like you always schedule everything out, and that's how you kind of get a lot of the stuff that you get done. What is a typical Monday like for you?
So I don't take meetings on Mondays or Fridays.
Except for we're the exceptions.
Right.
No,
right.
this is
we
a family
appreciate it,
event.
man.
This is
Exclusive.
a family event.
So I stack my calendar from like Tuesday through Thursdays. So my calendar is on my business card and in my signature line. So I'll meet with anybody and everybody for 30 minutes. Like,
Sure.
What's up?
Cool.
But Mondays and Fridays are reserved for like, not necessarily me days, but things that I'm passionate about, things that I want to take control on, you know?
Yeah.
So that's why I was like, yeah, Monday night's perfect. This is a part of me.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
There you go.
How did you start that that activity of splitting out Monday and Friday and then power packing Tuesday through Thursday? Like what led to that? Like when did you start doing that? Or...
Being overworked, which is real easy to fall into, or falling into routine. So I realized that as things popped up on my calendar, it just made me more effective. So I was like, you know what, let me live my life in my calendar. And so like I book it, and it's wrecked relationships where I'm like, yeah, baby, here's a link to my calendar. Just get on it so we can hang out.
Yeah,
Sure.
hell yeah.
It doesn't really fly too well.
I need to get Dre on one of those calendars.
I need to be on some kind of calendar. Let me tell you, having 2 children now requires, I mean, you can't tell your kids, hey, fit it into my schedule. And, you know, like when they need it, they need it.
Save that tantrum for Tuesday. At
Right,
3.
exactly.
Exactly. No, but you should be getting you time on your calendar, right?
Yeah,
Where,
absolutely.
like, whether it's playing ball, hitting the gym, whatever it is that makes you a better you, like, you should give that priority for your crew, right?
Right, absolutely. Now,
Recording
what
a
I've been doing is I've had to adjust my me time is early in the morning now, because that's like kind of really the only time, and like aside from the podcast and everything like that, 4 o'clock in the morning I'll get up and I'll go to the gym, and like while I'm on cardio, that's when I'm like reflecting, what do I have to do, blah blah. Then I get on the weights and do whatever, I go hard doing that, and then probably around 5:30, 6 o'clock, that's when the day begins. Like I have to go home, get breakfast for the kids, get the boy to school, all that good stuff, and then I kind of play it by ear. But that 4 o'clock to like 6 o'clock time, that's really my me time. And I've never been a morning person, so it's kind of like cool to experience that. But I think I need to move it to a different time and maybe add an extra hour.
There you go.
Know what I'm saying? So
Yeah, but even with his 2 kids, he's been doing really good, trying to get out here, scheduling and everything. It's tough, but
it's tough. It's tough. It's tough.
I
appreciate you guys being patient with me.
Don't worry about it, Trey. Dean, actually, he just joined the podcast a couple of weeks ago. So he's actually a newer host. And like I said, Dre and I, we started the podcast at Hub 101. And just so like everybody's on the same page, could you like just give a quick rundown of what that actually is and like what you do?
Totally. So for the people that don't know me, I'm Greg Monterrosa. Mm-hmm. So I'm one of the founders and community managers at Hub 101. So Hub 101 is a nonprofit dedicated to serving entrepreneurs. So my attitude is I'm just going to overwhelm you with resources. And what's really neat is we have a tribe of about 120 of us that call the space home. Mm-hmm. And our favorite questions to ask each other, like, who's your favorite customer? What obstacles are you facing? And that sets a really cool tone when I know what you need help with or what kind of business I should be sending your way.
Sure.
Prior to that, like we were all in home offices or at Starbucks or in places like this, where like
our awesome garage.
It really didn't allow for like us to build out our network, bring value to people. We, as entrepreneurs, there's a misconception that we're like lone wolves or lone warriors, and no, that's not true. We operate better as a unit.
Absolutely.
Right.
You look at successful people, regardless of what they do, whether it's music, film, or business, like they have their unit that they roll with.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure.
And if you're not contributing, you're going to get left behind. And that's the power of outgrowing people, which is so fair to happen. Yeah. So it's neat. We have this awesome space in Westlake Village that allows us to hang out, do our thing, network with each other, work alongside each other. And we have venture capital groups that work out of our space, people working on really cool things, raising capital. So it's been really neat to work on a project like this. And it's community focused. Yeah, so definitely. I'm not a for-profit entity, which is kind of cool. Yeah. And it gives me a competitive advantage to where like my community is my value. Mm-hmm. And I'll go get that money from Fortune 100 companies.
There you go.
How did the project come about? How did where did it get its roots? Like you obviously, how did it happen?
So let me back it up. So I launched a business in Westlake Village about 11 years ago, myllc.com, where people set up corporations and LLCs. And about 5 years ago, I went to this massive art party, Burning Man, in the middle of the desert. Cool. Came back and realized, like, there's more to me than this. Like, I don't want to be the LLC guy forever.
Sure, yeah.
Because that's what I was becoming. Everybody was like, Greg, I'm setting up a corporation. Like, I need help. Whoop, whoop. And so I was like, man, I'm tired of these calls. So I hired my replacement. And I followed the model of eBay. So eBay was an awesome company. They brought an adult in, Meg Whitman, and she grew the company. They bought PayPal, and like they're just crushing it. Yeah. Wow. So I was like, I need my Meg Whitman.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I hired my replacement, and then took time for myself. So I linked up with Strange Music at that point, Tech Nine's label.
Yeah.
And saw what the music game was doing on the independent level. And that was really neat to see. So then my approach let me identify artists selling 5,000 CDs out their cars in Houston and bring them a distribution deal. So I partnered up with this company called Ingrooves Fontana, who was distributing Strange Music's music. And it was neat going into these regions that suited pale males didn't have access to, and I was over here coming in with like iPhone footage of just the hottest acts that no one's ever heard of that are selling a lot of units.
Right.
And so I was giving them digital distribution deals. Here, get your music on all the platforms and crush it.
Yeah.
So life on the road was not a life to live. It's like every night's a Friday night, and it just gets old. So
Tiring.
Right. So I'm like, it's time to go home for a bit. So at this point, I had a few DJs, hip hop acts that we were managing, and the attitude was like, you got to get out of your city to blow up. So if you're an artist in your room or in your city and you haven't played any shows outside of your city, get out of your city.
Yeah.
Especially if you're from LA. Like you're from LA, you go anywhere, you're gonna get love on a whole different level. So we took that approach to independent acts. We just kept them touring, and so that got old. 2 years in, I was like, all right, this is cool. I've made a cool network, but it's exhausting. So came back to Agora Hills, which is where I call home, and the person I was dating at the time, we bought a one-way ticket to France, and off we went. And so prior to that, I had organized a few startup events here in the community, and I was always involved with helping startups network with people.
Okay.
And so we did an event startup weekend at Hub 101 before it was Hub 101. I organized it. The event took place from Friday through Sunday, and that Tuesday I left town.
Okay.
Wow. And so, yeah.
Wow.
Went on a nice little sabbatical. So my attitude was like, I need to go somewhere where I'm going to be uncomfortable but not die.
Yeah.
So I grew up, I grew up by USC, and at the time it was South Central LA. And so that really prepared me for like the world. Like I've been to Bogota. I know what their hoods are like there. Like you can identify hoods, and I'm like, I don't want to be somewhere where I'm going to die. So France seems like a pretty cool city. Let's go to Paris. So while there, I dove right into their startup community and ended up mentoring over 100 startups, invested in a few.
How did you like get into their startup community? I mean, you just
The
kind of start
hustle.
looking around, or it's just
The hustle, which is so cool. So the internet is an amazing place. So I go online and I'm like, who are the hottest venture capital groups in Paris right now? Who are the hottest accelerators and incubators right now? So I'm going to send them an email.
Okay.
I'm from LA. I'm coming out. I'd love to see what you guys are up to. And I'm not going to lie, like 90% of these people were like, come on through.
Wow.
Nice.
Wow.
And so had that been a few years prior to that, when I was insecure, like none of that would have gone down. So now I touched down in a new city. I've got these meetings lined up, and I end up staying there for like a long time. And so at this point, Cal Lutheran University reaches out, and they're like, we got this space. Come help us turn it into something. And I'm like, let's do it.
Nice, man.
So I book a flight home. I live at the Motel 6 in Newbury Park for 2 months.
Unlimited in and out.
Right. But it's grimy. It's like that motel life is a whole different grime. Like, but whatever. Shout out to everybody at Motel 6s. You guys are putting in the work.
There you go.
So yeah, we launched the brand Hub 101 a few months later, and I warned the university, we're going to treat this like a startup. So we're going to grow fast.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's exactly what happened, which is really cool.
What do you think was the reasoning behind that, like, such a expedited growth?
Acknowledging that I need to support leaders. So all of us want to step up and wear like that I'm the leader hat. Where my attitude was, it's more effective for me to identify leaders and bring them so much damn value that they can't live without me.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it puts me in a really neat position where I get to watch like these groups go from like 4 people to like now they're filling up our main area.
Sure.
Yeah.
And
awesome,
my thing was like just overwhelm them with resources, you know? So surrounding myself with people that are out there getting it.
Yeah.
It sucks when you have to drop friends and acquaintances because you outgrow them, but that's fair.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because you can't be the only one in the group that grinds, you know,
Right.
From a social aspect and
Right.
from a professional aspect.
Especially like if you have
Yeah.
a family and like, you know, your time is your most valuable asset.
Absolutely.
So who I'm going to kick it with is so crucial,
Yeah.
which is why like I try to make the effort to surround myself with winners.
Yeah.
Sure.
And by that, I mean people that I'm mentoring, people that I'm running alongside with, and people that mentor me.
Okay.
Okay.
which all may be kind of one and the same. If you know, based on whatever lessons you're getting from the current experience, it could
Right.
be, you know, your mentee could be your mentor too, I guess.
Which is so cool.
Yeah.
So now you're like surrounded with these people that you want to be with, that you guys are bringing each other value. So like success is inevitable.
Yeah.
That's so interesting, man. The journey to Paris brought you back to Agora. Like it's crazy.
You got to get out your city to blow
Yeah,
up.
absolutely, man. Absolutely.
So what you were sharing with us, like, what are some of the bigger successes that stand out for you from Hub 101, like from people's experiences there?
Oh man. So it's seeing that insecure person walking in and not knowing if their idea is going to work. And then a few months later, you see they're acquiring customers, they're growing their business, they're hiring people. To me, that's awesome. So what's kind of silly is like my goal at Hub 101 is for people to grow their business so fast that they move out.
Okay.
Which is like bittersweet, but like I don't want you to stick
So
around
you're
forever.
watching your baby go to college, you know?
Right,
Like, exactly.
Yeah.
Man. So, but you mentioned, you know, watching the insecure person go into a place confident, you know, doing their thing. Was that ever a challenge for you, like insecurity? And like,
man.
if it was, how did you overcome that?
So that was my biggest obstacle. So when I launched my first business, my LLC, I was in my mid-20s. My competitors were people that were lawyers. They had a lot of money, like the LegalZooms of the world.
Right.
So I'm like, am I even adequate to be doing this? And so a book publisher reached out to us and they write the Dummy series and we're like, we need somebody to write this book. And we're like, let's do it. And so that really set the tone for the company.
Okay.
And so at some point I just had to shake it off me. And what was neat was an exercise somebody had me do where they were like, they had me envision myself at like 60. And they were like, what are your mannerisms? What do you eat? How do you dress? How do people treat you?
Right.
And then they left me with the, what's wrong with being that person today? And so that really stuck. And I was like, I should be who I want to be when I grow up right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get that.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
I was just listening to this neurolinguistics program or whatever it was, and they were talking about like that exact thing. Like everyone's always thinking about like what I should be doing and not who I want to be.
Right.
And who I want to be is so much more important, and it leads you to what I should be doing. And I guess that's kind of like a similar experience that you had. It's just,
Man, it's
just,
a blessing
just live
when,
it right now. Yeah.
when you change that mind frame. So like the other day I was reflecting and I was like, wow, a 14-year-old me would be so proud of me right now. And like, we got to remind ourselves of that, right? Like we're breadwinners. We're contributing to our communities. We're good people. Like, think about that 14-year-old you, right? Or that 13-year-old you. Like, what would that person think? Would he want to be mentored by you, right?
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's just a really interesting tone. So like I had to shake off insecurity and step into a role of confidence for the sake of that kid, right?
Right.
Right.
That's really deep.
Yeah, man.
That's actually really deep.
I was gonna
Like
say,
that.
man, I'm like thinking about 14-year-old me walking around with my Vince Carter Raptor jersey, like thinking I was gonna put my arm in the rim at some point. I'm like, look, man, bad knees will get you every time.
There's a cool song I listened to today where the lyric is, "This life's the only thing I know."
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
You ever heard that?
Who is it by?
I think it's by you,
Yeah,
bro.
it is. But I was gonna say,
There you
I
go.
thought
There you go.
My life's the only thing I know. Yeah.
Which was such a cool reminder to listen to today. I listened to your album today, by the way.
Nice, man. Nice.
And
That's
so,
awesome.
right.
That's really cool.
And the music's really cool and empowering.
Thank you, man. Thank you. That was 2010. I did that, and that's just kind of, there was a space at that time, and it kind of goes back to like how. That's why I asked you the thing about Paris, is because like at that time I was like this, not very shy. I was never really a shy kid, but at the time, like with my music, I was very like reserved. I was to the chest, and I had moved to Austin, Texas, and we had a studio in the house, and I avoided that thing like the plague because my dad's a big time music producer. Like he's won Grammys, everything. So it was me basically saying, am I going to live up to that guy, to that mentor, blah, blah. But then I just one day said, you know what, let me just get in the studio. And I probably spent 6 months just making song after song after song after song after song after song. And I picked those 10. I asked my little cousin, I was like, hey man, which one do you like, you know, and I picked 10 songs, and he goes, okay, well, let's do one together. And then I added that song to it. So, but it was just one of those moments where it was just like you said, it was kind of shaking off those cobwebs of insecurity and being like, I can actually do this. I can get into the studio and I can actually make this happen. And I still listen to that album today. My dad listens to it and he's like, what were you doing? Like, that was like, you know, the best.
I bumped it hard in my office today.
Hey, man, well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and that independent hustle, right? So there's a lot of independent like people out there that have 9-to-5s that are building home studios and doing their thing and thinking to themselves like, how do I monetize this? So a tip I have for them is this cat named Ryan Leslie. Yeah. So Ryan Leslie is probably one of the most, I think Kanye West quoted him as like the most creative person on earth type of thing. Okay. But this guy's done everything. So what he does is he built this platform called the Superphone. So you can actually call him or text him and it goes to his Superphone, which is an app he built, and it's how he engages with his fans.
Wow.
Okay.
So the attitude, like historically, is I'm an artist. I put out one album or I put out a single. Let's say, for example, it sells 500,000 units.
Yeah.
So then I go put out another album. How do I retarget that same 500,000 people? It's really hard.
Yeah.
So what Ryan Leslie did is he built a Superphone, which is a database where he's like, yeah, text me right now. Yeah. Like, I want your contact info.
Sure.
And so that's elevated his game to a whole different level to where his last album, he didn't put it out on any of the music streaming platforms.
Yeah. So the Superphone contacts.
Yeah, sent it straight to the people on the Superphone.
I need that for dating, man.
Yeah, I know, right? No, Ryan Leslie's a good man. That dude is a genius. He
So
really
there's
is.
a lot of independent people out there making big moves, especially like in the music world. You got people like Chance the Rapper, who his album drops and Apple cuts him a $500,000 check to stream it on their platform exclusively, and then he goes out and puts it on what, SoundCloud? Right.
For free. Yeah.
That's the power of staying independent and knowing how to finesse your way into deals, but also like being around the right people. I think his booking agent's like the booking agent for acts within his genre. So like go identify those people and like go out there and talk to them. Like he had nothing in his stable when he approached this person. They were like, yeah, let's get it.
Yeah. Do you have any industry that's your favorite to where, I mean, like, because you're bringing in people from all walks of life for sure. And we were talking about it a little bit. So like, do you have any industry that's like kind of like your passionate industry? Is that music or is it a different?
So music is awesome because it's so raw and it's such a hustle. Like you see these artists out there that are making big moves right now. It wasn't always that way. You know, success is for some of these acts, like they put in a lot of work. So I like to see more entrepreneurs putting in that kind of hustle into what they're up to. When I meet somebody who's like, yo, listen to my CD. And I'm like, bro, get your grimy headphones out of my face. But I'm like, if an entrepreneur had that much drive to come up to me and say, hey, download my app, or hey, buy my product, or look, buy my shirt. Like, to me, that's the hustle, is being uncomfortable, getting out there and getting in front of your audience, even if they don't know they're your audience.
Yeah, and it's got to be kind of easier now too with all the tools that we have, and because you know I don't have to walk up to you on the street. You know, like I can go like I did you like on Instagram. I just hit you up on the direct message, and you know I basically did that. It's kind of that same concept entirely.
But it kind of takes away one of the elements of it too. I mean, if you think like, it's kind of like that old school, like I have to push through being uncomfortable. Like we can kind of sit behind a computer and it's uncomfortable to learn how to do some stuff, but you know, they kind of say like texting is ruining the value of, you know, person to person communication. And that's kind of the same thing. Like we don't have to go out on the street and try and get
it's easy
to buy
to
our
say
blank disc.
It's a lot easier to say no.
Right.
Yeah.
You know? But, you know, like if we look back, you know, 30, 20 years, you know, probably like 30 years now, when there's, you know, like only like a couple of television channels and stuff, like having that same kind of interaction once you're in front of the person that knows a lot harder to do because, you know, you're not seeing as many people as you do now.
Which is why we have to look at people like Master P. So someone like Master P was able to pull off all the success he had like pre-internet.
Yeah.
And like that's a hustle.
He had an empire.
Right.
Yeah, man.
So it's neat. Like they're not reinventing the wheel. It all like that's why like I love the name of your show, because that's what it all comes down to. It's like the hustle in you. Like how bad do you want it? Like no one's gonna come to me and say, "Hey, Greg, here's this amazing opportunity," unless I go out there and hustle.
Yeah, it doesn't take anything for you to participate, but just here, feel free and get benefits from doing this. You're like, no, I gotta work for it.
Right.
Exactly.
That's why it's neat when you identify, like, so people are like, follow your passion and do what you're passionate about, right?
Yeah.
But not all of us know what we're passionate about. So I'm a fiend for opportunity.
Right.
So if I see an opportunity to where I can bring you value and at the same time bring myself value, like, let's get it.
Yeah.
That's why we're sitting here.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for those people out there that are like, man, everybody keeps telling me like I should be doing what I'm passionate about, and I don't know what I'm passionate about. So like you've got millennials, right? People asking them. So I have like 20 undergrads that work for me. And something they get asked daily, I've noticed, is like, what are you going to do once you graduate? And I'm like, bro, leave them alone.
Exactly. And I feel like too, with, like you were saying, with everything being so easy now, like, and there's a need to want to know, like for young kids listening to the show, they may think that they're passionate about something, but it's just because there's like that added pressure. Like, it's we want things now. We want the results now. So it's like, oh, I have to know what I want now. So they're hustling for something that they may not even be passionate about, and it steers them in the wrong direction, and they have to figure it out later on in life.
So true.
So it's just kind of finding that balance, or actually taking the time, like you said, having that me time to reflect on, is this actually what I want to do? Do I need to put my effort somewhere else? So I think that's important, because a lot of people are failing at something that they shouldn't be doing in the first place and getting super discouraged by it.
It's like kindergarten's like college prep now. I mean,
it's
scary. That's gonna force people to make decisions that they may not be ready for. Like just like you're saying, like may not even like coloring, but they're taking a major in it or something.
I was listening to somebody talk about their kid going, applying for colleges, and they had to like design an app. They had to open a nonprofit overseas, and like those are the things they had to do before they were allowed to apply for just to apply to get into the school. I'm like, oh my goodness,
that's
like
next level, man.
Yeah, so it's getting tough for everybody out there.
Nah,
regardless of the tools that you have.
Especially that entrepreneur, that has that 9-to-5 job.
Yeah.
Who feels the pressure of like, how do I obtain more from my family? But like, I like the security of my 9-to-5.
Right.
And that type of person, I'm usually like, identify opportunities. Where are there like voids that you can fill, right? Yeah. So like, I'm not gonna tell this guy, go out there and take 1 million pictures because you happen to own a dope camera, and hopefully that'll be your passion. Right. It's like, no, you got a family to feed, bro. Go find yourself an opportunity, make money on that to then bankroll what you're passionate about.
Right.
Yeah. When did you do that? What have you worked a 9-to-5 before? Or did you?
I did. But
how did that transition into My LLC or whatever else you started up before that?
So in my case, I feel like I was born for entrepreneurship. So
I believe that.
One of my first
listen to him talk. I'm like,
I want to listen more. I don't care about the podcast.
So growing up in LA, my grandmother, I must have been like 6, 7 years old. She'd go sell tamales in front of the supermarkets. And so she'd cook them up all day Saturday, and then we'd go out there on Sunday. And like, I didn't realize at the time, but like, we were practicing entrepreneurs, and then we've got heroes like my mom. So like, my mom comes to a city, doesn't speak the language. She's probably illegal here anyway, not anymore. So, but she comes here, goes to school in the daytime, works at night, and got to the point where like she owns hair salons across LA.
Oh wow.
And so she never saw entrepreneurship as like, that was just a necessity. That was like a way of life.
Right.
Survival,
Right.
Yeah, the survival,
So I get to the point where like, I'm working at Countrywide Home Loans for Angelo Mazzillo out in Simi. Shout out to the guy.
Shout out to Countrywide.
So I helped them build this awesome product, and this awesome product ends up making them a lot of money. So I'm coming in for my raise, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be beautiful. Like, I'm about to I'm getting everything for everybody. Right. I'm going to get that bottom grill I've been wanting. These fools give me a BS raise and more work. And I'm like, wait, like I'm supposed to be like celebrated, and I feel like I'm being penalized here.
Right.
Yeah.
So long story short, I quit, and Angelo Mazzillo tells me, hey, you should go work for a small startup. What do you mean by that? Yeah, go work for a small startup and help them grow. And so, okay, cool. So I pulled up on AOL, what is a startup? And like, are there any here in the
AOL,
area?
yeah.
Right. So I go out there and I find a small.com. I'm like employee number 6. And long story short, I help them get acquired like 3 years later. And these people get paid a fat dollar amount to sell their business, which I got nothing of. And I was like, wait. Okay, so now I see how the game works. I need to be that guy. Right.
Yeah.
So, this friend of mine reached out to me and was like, Greg, I've got this domain name and 10 Gs. Come help me turn it into something. And I was like, let's go. So we launched myllc.com, and I lived in my office for a few months. My priority became, do I hire somebody or do I have my own apartment?
Yeah.
So for most of my 20s into my 30s, like that consumed me, growing my business and just making sure that like income was coming in steadily. So we built out all these different revenue streams. We competed against ourselves. So it was neat to be that guy making those decisions.
Right.
And so, you're born with it. I'm pretty sure you could teach entrepreneurship, but you just know, right?
Right. Yeah. It's you start to see there's like right now, like with CLU and like the entrepreneurship thing is just
Boom,
it
yeah.
has to be there now. I think it's a necessity because for whatever reason, like just I feel like the corporate world isn't given as many opportunities to the younger generations.
Right.
It's such a different like millennials though. I've done a lot of studies about millennials, and we're nuts. I mean, we're on the cusp. Like we kind of identify with both, the generation before us and then millennials as well. And millennials are known as the first group to take on social responsibility is one of the things that's so important to them. And it's really hard, what I can see, for corporate America to understand that, except for the companies that specifically work in that sector and are advising other companies like how to deal with us millennials. It seems really difficult because we want the things that are the exact opposite of what these people were told to give to their employees.
Right.
For instance, like you were saying that with Countrywide, you made this bomb deal and you were expecting a lot out of it, and that's just from a monetary sense. And you should have been given that, but they were always taught. They kind of brought you down. They tried to take you down a peg or two and shrink your head a little bit. They don't want you to get cocky or thinking that you're deserving or entitled or anything. They're just, and that's the same kind of issue that I think millennials are seeing is like the lack of support for their hustle. Right. And so that's why entrepreneurship becomes so exciting, because we're all like looking at all these corporations and we're like, damn, we just don't get the support we need.
Right.
And so it becomes really exciting to look at Hub 101, for instance. It's like this comfortable zone for uncomfort,
right?
For discomfort, and it's like the safe space where you can explore everything that your mind wants to, every area that your mind thinks it may be inaccessible, because you have the different tools and you guys are providing those tools.
And my employees, I expect them to have a side hustle. Like if you don't have side hustles going on, like I'm not being an effective boss.
Right.
And so it's neat when you're able to see that senior graduate and not have to go get a job at Enterprise.
Sure.
He's like, oh, my business is making me enough money to where I'm just going to keep growing it.
Yeah.
Right.
To me, that's success when managing millennials.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not trying to keep you forever. Like,
sure,
I'm going to help you sharpen your skills.
Sure.
So you can go to that next level that I might not be able to take you to.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember reading even at Google, like a huge company like that, they've set aside time for their employees during the workday to work on their whatever it is that they're passionate about.
Yeah.
So if you're managing people and you're listening to this podcast, maybe rethink the way you're managing people.
Yeah.
And create like a creative environment where they feel comfortable solving problems that you face, because they're just sharpening their entrepreneurial skills.
Yeah. As long as it's not, like there are some people that want to explore their side hustle
Right.
on the hours of their current hustle, which, you got to obviously separate to some extent. But yeah, man, you gotta
Not
make room
really.
for creativity. No, no.
I'm a pirate at times.
I love
so like sometimes like you just gotta give it your all, right? Balls to the wall. Or like that. This is all I have feeling.
Yeah.
So like with my LLC, I was like, this cannot fail. I cannot afford for this to fail. And it was that kind of drive that drove us to just crush it and have our competitors looking into acquiring us, and me being like, no, I'm good. Or having VCs saying, hey, Greg, let's give you money. And I'm like, I wouldn't know what to do with it. Don't. Like,
And as an aspiring entrepreneur myself, I kind of almost feel the opposite some of the times, because I have an okay career going. I work with a family company that's been around for 40 plus years, 50 years coming on, and I feel like I can't afford for my ideas to succeed a lot of the times. Which is, that's one of my own personal battles, but that's,
Yeah. And sometimes, and I agree with you, because I'm in the same situation. Love the company that I work for, a lot of room for growth. But at a certain point, I feel like older, corporations, they kind of have to get on board with what's happening with the young millennial entrepreneur type things, because the people that are being bred now aren't built to succeed necessarily in that. I mean, unless you go the college route, 4 years, everything like that, and you have like your specific thing that you want to do. But there's so much attention span, like just attention's everywhere, So I feel like if you want to grow your business even more, like you kind of have to nourish that, like how you were saying, Google, they let their people go and do that, and it kind of gives that energy back to like, hey, I'm going to bring this back to the company now. Like I have this energy and I think that this could fit in this market. Like I feel like that's a good recipe for success. And I kind of feel like that's what you guys are doing at Hub 101, where you're like, maybe not necessarily with your employees or whatever, but you're kind of nourishing that creative or just, entrepreneurial spirit, and then letting that feed what you guys are doing and expanding your company as well as expanding them.
That kind of attitude just helps the brand at the end of the day, right?
Right, absolutely.
So like here you have somebody who didn't know what they want to do, and I don't expect people, like I don't know what I'm going to do when I grow up, you know what I'm saying? And they come into a space like that and they find their lane,
right?
Where they're like, wow, people are paying me to take pictures. Well, yeah, people need headshots for their websites, or people are paying me for my design skills. Yes, we all need user interfaces, and like it's neat when they're able to take those skill sets that they've been either learning or practicing, or it's not uncommon to find that person who taught themselves how to code, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And then they find a home like Hub 101, and they're able to get paid for their skills, and they're like, wow.
Yeah.
So would you say
incredible.
that? Sorry, go ahead.
No.
I was gonna say, would you say, Greg, that like one of the most important things for our listeners to do would be, I mean, because I was gonna ask you, what do you think is the most important thing? But while I'm listening to you, it sounds like one of the most important things is just surrounding yourself with your crew, like surrounding yourself with people that you can leverage everyone's strengths and fill in their weaknesses, or their places where maybe they're just not so strong. I won't say weaknesses, but that seems super, like it's an environment that you're nurturing, and it sounds like the most important piece.
It's so cool when I'm able to hang out with people that I respect, and I'm like, wow, I get to kick it with you every day.
Right.
Like, what a blessing, bro. You are so smart. So like at Hub 101, I have this one guy, Randy Adams, shout out. This guy is a rock star. So like they put up a sign for him saying welcome, and I was like, wait, is that the Randy? And they're like, yes. So Randy was the CTO at Adobe when they launched the PDF. Thank you. He was like employee number 6 at Next when Steve Jobs was like, Apple, I'm over this. I'm going to go start my own thing. When he joined Yahoo, he was like, Yahoo, we should be like adults and set up a board of directors and maybe raise capital. So like he is that guy. And like he hangs out like in the main area. Like he doesn't have a office or anything. And like to be able to yoke with people like that, on a daily basis is so huge. So like when people are like, Greg, you've changed. What's the line I'm supposed to change?
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
which
you've
is
changed. Well, you've stayed the same.
Where's the problem?
exactly. And then acknowledging that like we all need mentors, right? So like especially as men, and no, everybody needs a mentor.
Right.
But like I need somebody that I could bounce ideas off of. So like I have my business mentors, I have my personal life mentors, and then I have like my spiritual mentors, right? Shout out to Conejo Church. Like
Yeah.
Shout out.
you've gotta like identify what is important in your life, and can I find the smartest person in that world that I can buy dinner for once a quarter.
Right.
Yeah.
Man,
Wow.
dropping gems right now. I'm like, I want to keep going. Like, I'm just like, what else? What else?
No, but that's
What
been
else?
such an effective approach. Like, roll into your cell phone and just scroll through and identify who's the dopest person in my phone, and like invite them out to dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they've probably been waiting to hear from you. You know, feeling neglected. Like, damn, I gave this knucklehead my number. And like, he couldn't even reach out to say what's up.
I just got to make sure I bring microphones when I do
Right,
that.
Right, exactly. Yeah, now for sure.
So I'm notorious for that, you know, like just going through my phone, or like a phone call, or like the random FaceTime lately has been my thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To where like, I'm gonna hit you with the random FaceTime to see how much love you have for me.
Right.
Because if you pick up that random FaceTime from me, like you love me. You know what I'm saying? I'm just like,
It's like, where you? I'm at work, bro.
Greg, it's 1 a.m,
It's like,
man. What
right.
up?
exactly.
That's
Yeah.
great, man. Hey, so where do you see, like, you know, whether it's yourself or whether it's Hub 101, like just future endeavors? Like, where do you see
10
the
10
growth
years,
going?
5
10
years.
years, 5 years. I know you said the 60-year-old me, why can't I be that person now?
Right.
So maybe you're not looking that far ahead, but like, what is Hub 101's next big thing? Like, how do you plan to integrate that more into the community, or how do you plan to integrate yourself more in the community? What's next for you?
So first, like for Hub 101, I would want us to be replicated in other underserved communities.
Okay.
So not everybody has a luxury of living in the Bay or living in Silicon Beach. Like there's some of us in regions that people never hear of. And so my attitude is to bring those type of regions value, because we have creative and smart people everywhere.
Yeah.
So just because you're not in a big city doesn't mean that you don't have the same opportunities. So my attitude is to build startup communities where they're needed. For personal, it's just to be happy. So I went from a chasing money grind to a chasing happiness grind, and realized that I have no needs, which is such a cool space to be in. For a minute, it was like, how much money can I acquire? And the IRS was like, oh, that's us. This person was like, oh, that's us.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, like this is not fun.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? Let me chase happiness with that same gusto.
Yeah.
And so like a switch flipped, you know, to where I'm like, I'm only going to do things I'm excited about, or that bring me happiness. So like, I swore I wasn't going to work for anybody ever again, but COU came with this opportunity. Their management is just so on point. Like my boss is an angel investor. His boss is a serial entrepreneur. And I'm like, why wouldn't I want to come hang out with the smartest guys in the room?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's funny because most people would like you would hear that, like, you know, I stopped focusing on money and started focusing on happiness. A lot of people would say, well, that's a privilege. But you can turn around and say, no, it's just how I do it. I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
because it's whatever you make of it. I mean, if you've made your goal happiness and you can make that work for you, you're a successful entrepreneur and a successful human being. I mean,
Absolutely.
And it's like,
because
I'm
your
not
happiness spreads.
balling
It's
by any means. You know, I'm in a used car. I live in a small place. But like, my happiness is my priority.
Right.
Yeah.
So like, I don't need 15,000 square feet of space to validate myself. Or I don't need that new, well, I might need that new Tesla soon.
but you're changing the world, man. I mean, like you're creating this environment where people can create, where they can be comfortable in their ideas, and these are, I'm sure, they're groundbreaking ideas at least a lot of the time.
right, yeah.
And you're responsible for that environment and making sure that it helps them.
And I do
it's
this to kick it with
crazy.
people like you guys.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The people that are on that grind, and like, this is what I enjoy doing.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, so it's all about who you kick it with. And
That's why we
proximity
do it.
being
That's
key.
why we do it.
Right. That's why we do it. I enjoy having you, man.
Oh, man,
You should be
yeah,
a regular
man.
guest.
This is a pleasure. This is a pleasure.
Come back as like a guest co-host.
Right, exactly, man. Exactly.
So something I got on last year was themes for the year. So last year my theme was gratitude. So, man, so you are what you do. And so I was like, what are my routines? And like my morning routine sucked. So like I'd wake up, reach for my phone, have a cup of coffee, and like start my day. And so that phone dictates what your day is like.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you know what? Let me switch it up and try something different. So this homie of mine turned me on to, bro, just wake up and drink a tall glass of water. That's how you want
Right.
to start your day.
Absolutely.
So then I downloaded this app called Headspace. And so what Headspace is it's a 3-minute guided meditation. So I'm like, I keep hearing about people meditating and how important it is, but like, how do I do that? So I downloaded this app, I sit on my front porch, and I give myself 3 minutes. All right, so I got like all these books I need to read. I should probably dedicate like 10 to 15 minutes a day to like just pick one up and just start reading where I left off.
Right.
And so I've established like this routine. And so I applied gratitude to it. So like I'll kick off my day before I jump in the shower. I'm like, 3 things I'm grateful for, silly as they are, right? And it's like gas, my whip, my phone, or the internet, just like things that bring my life value.
Yeah.
So then this year, my theme is kindness. So that's been really cool to see firsthand. So the attitude with that is do things because you want to do things, not because you have to do things, and want nothing in exchange.
Yeah.
Nice, man.
And you're kind of putting it out there in the universe.
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
you know, like it's the beginning of the year, you know, like you
Right.
put it out there. Like it's there. Like I feel like that's just like making it happen.
Right.
and it's crazy that you said that too, because my grandfather, or my great grandfather, pardon me, he was a pastor in Austin, Texas, and he had his own church and you know everything, and it was a small church, and now it's grown to like this huge church, you know, just with his whole mission and everything. And one of his biggest sayings, and I made it like kind of my, I guess you could say my slogan or my mission for this year, is just he would say this at the end of every sermon. He would say, and just remember, it's always nice to be nice, you know? And it's just so simple and like it's almost kind of corny, but it goes a long way,
It does.
especially nowadays, man. Like it definitely goes a long way. So I'm just like, just take that every morning. Just remember, it's just nice to be nice,
Right.
you know. And you just take that, and you, like, I'm a road rager, like, and I, you know, now every time like somebody will just cut me off, and I just give them a little wave as
Right.
opposed to you know the other way around, you know. But and it's kind of helping me just kind of go about my day in a more like balanced and like peaceful way. So I think that's helping for sure.
You're
know?
putting your mask on first.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, he wasn't here for that.
I didn't hear
man.
that. I didn't hear that. Were you recording? I need to know.
No, we weren't
what that is.
recording.
We had
That was
this
our
whole
private
incredible conversation earlier, but the gist of it was, you know, when you're on the airplane, and Greg brought this up, you're on the airplane and you listen to the person go through the safety instructions. They always say, you know, if you're for the little one, you got to put your mask
you
on
put
first.
your mask on first,
and then
get,
so it's kind of like you got to
okay.
take care of yourself before you take care of the world. You know,
I
it's-
like
and
that.
it's- Yeah.
Put your mask
It was a
on
great
first.
moment.
It's so easy to lose sight of that too. You know, to where sometimes I'm like, why do I feel so exhausted, or why do I feel unfulfilled? And I'm like, wait, it's because I'm not taking care of me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like what's important to me, you know, and to me it's like popping into a random service for like a church, regardless of like what your denomination is, which has led me to some really interesting places. Shout out to Spirit Food in Woodland Hills. Like I've never danced so much at a church.
That's cool.
You know?
I tell people that all the time though. You can't take care of anyone else until you take care of yourself.
Yeah.
I always say that.
So like the same applies like if you have a family, right? So imagine that listener who like, I have a 9 to 5, I got a family to feed. So Greg, I hear you saying like, take care of me, but it's hard to take care of me when like my kid's waking me up in the morning. My wife ain't home from work yet, so I got to make dinner, you know, like, but live out your calendar.
Yeah.
And like give your wife time to do her.
Right.
And she'll offer that same respect to you, right?
Absolutely.
Hey babe, why don't you allocate 3 hours next week and do whatever the hell you want? Whether it's go do yoga, whatever the hell you want. Like that's you time. You want to go sit at the park and read a book? Go
Go
nuts.
do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My-
No, I'm starting to learn that with my 2-year-old, because you know I just had a baby. She's 2 weeks old, But my 2-year-old, man, he's an energy, like he picks up energy like you wouldn't believe. And so if I come home stressed, deflated, whatever, he picks that up and he's just, a problem to deal with.
Right,
You know what I'm
right.
saying? Like he picks up, but every time I come home, like say it's from the gym or whatever, I feel rejuvenated, I feel energized, or I took some time for me to do whatever, music, write, read, whatever. He's just like, I just want to be around you, like, let's go, let's do this. And like, I feel like I have that energy to give back to him. Cause like, I look at it, like I've heard people, say, your wife has her gas tank, your kids have their gas tank. Everybody needs to be full at some point, but if you're supplying the gas, like you have to fill up yourself,
Right.
in order to give that gas to everybody else. And then you go back, you refill. So I'm learning that probably like just the hardest I've ever learned it in my life right now because of my kid. He's showing it to me like, hey, you better come here on your A game or, I'm going to be exactly. You're going to catch one for sure. And nobody's sleeping tonight. Then moms is mad at me and then baby girl's mad at us. So I'm like, man, I'm learning that in the hard way.
That's why I'm a fan of like platforms out there like meetup.com. So like I can go on Meetup, search a group, and go spend an hour or two with them. And they're talking about a topic that I have an interest in.
Right.
Whether it's RC cars, computer science, data science, learning how to program, whatever. Like Meetup probably has a group in your neighborhood meeting on something that you're trying to pop off or learn, right?
Right, yeah.
So
it's exactly how I found Hub 101.
there you go. There you go.
With the coding group that they had in there.
But that's the attitude. Like, get connected, get out your comfort zone, right? So I know how exhausting it is working all day and then having that stress of like, I need to work on my own business or I need to do something for myself, right? Do yourself first and then watch how these beautiful ideas and opportunities are going to happen.
Preach.
Gyms.
Preach.
Gyms.
Preach.
Bars.
Right.
Bars. So I know we're probably getting close to wrapping up, but I just have to know this for my own selfish reasons, being that I'm a music head. You were in the music space, the industry. Your biggest lesson from working in that music industry, whether it was with Strange Music or, being on tour. I know you said it gets rough and I know it kind of secondhand, not necessarily firsthand, but I know how taxing it can be. But biggest lesson that you got out of that and how did that kind of translate to where you are now?
You got to move as a unit.
Yeah.
So you look at the most successful acts out there from like...
Shout out Wu-Tang.
There you go. Like everybody moves as a collective. So like the hottest producer is working like with his crew.
Yeah.
And so your attitude is like, go out there and meet people.
Yeah.
And so you're only going to be as strong as your network. So coming into the startup game, I apply the same principles that these independent artists and successful artists have, where they're like, I'm going to surround myself with the Timberlands of the world. Or I'm going to surround myself with the J. Coles of the world. So in the business world, you can identify those gems too, where you're like, damn, there's something special about that person. And like, I don't want anything from them, but I know I need them to be a part of my tribe.
Yeah.
So let me bring them so much damn value that they can't live without me.
Yeah.
Well, that's really cool, man.
Yeah, value, name of the game, man.
Yeah, I want to surround
Value.
myself. That's why me, Dre, and Chris are sitting here. We surround ourselves with you. Luckily.
Love it.
Too, which is
I
cool.
love it, man. Absolutely.
Yeah, it was an honor having you on. So we're about an hour here. We could probably go on and on all night.
through the morning.
Right.
Where can people find information about Hub 101, more information about you?
So people can get info on Hub 101 at hub101.la or follow us on Instagram at Hub101. And people can get at me on Instagram at Greg Metro. And I answer all my DMs.
Yeah, and it
which
works.
is a pretty cool tactic. Yeah,
That's how I got here.
yeah. No, it's become a really cool platform for me. So I'm like averaging like 20 to 30 DMs a day. And like these are people from around the world that are like, Greg, I'm in Ghana and I need help popping this app off. What should I be doing? And it's like,
Sure.
cool, let's jump on a quick, like let's do this.
Right.
Schedule your half hour. Right? Just hit this
Yeah.
link. Yeah.
So I love that grind, right? Of that person who like would just reach out to you. And they're
Sure.
like, yo, like, can you help me? And it's like, if I feel what they're up to is sincere and cool, it's like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
The power of the DM.
That's right.
DM.
It goes down in the DM.
Right.
All right, well, let's wrap this up. Thanks again, everybody, for listening to the 5 O'Clock Hustle podcast. You can find all of our information at 5o'clockhustle.com. That's with the number 5. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Greg.
Thank you, guys.